Hello, I'm DK Johnston, and welcome to the second series of Alaska Filmmakers, a program dedicated to exploring the many talented individuals working in the Alaska film community. Over the next several months, we'll be talking with actors, electricians, writers, directors, and producers currently taking part in both local and incoming productions here in Alaska and finding out what inspired them to become storytellers. This week, host Joshua Lowman sits down with guest cinematographer and co-founder of Sprocketheads, Steve Rychetnik.
So Steve, how did you get started in production?
Oh, I've been interested in films and filmmaking and even good quality radio or comedy drama all my life. And in school, I was the Bell and Howell nerd. I ran the film strip projector. I ran the 16mm film projector. I did all that. I would, some buddies of mine, we would get together and make films on an old 8mm stop action film camera where we could do a frame at a time or just do bursts or just go out and do weird stuff. And so I've been doing that. It was an interest of mine for a long, long time, but I didn't know it was going to be a career until after high school.
What drew you to cinematography?
There was always photography in my home. My father was a photographer and a writer for all the newspapers in town. He actually worked for Channel 2 back when it was KENI TV as a photographer when they would run still photos, and he actually shot some film for them too back in the 60s. And then he went on to be a photographer and writer for Time Magazine, Life Magazine, National Geographic, and basically what they call a stringer, which we lived here in Alaska, and whenever there was a story happening in Alaska that needed to be told, either they would send him out to cover it, or they would send up some reporters and photographers, and they would always be at the house. It was like their home base. So I got to meet all these photographers and eventually filmmakers that would come through the house. We'd make a big dinner for them. I get to hear all their stories. And it was always fascinating because they always seemed to, they had this great job that would take them interesting places, and it was always different, and they were always in charge. They got to be the boss of wherever they were at because they had the camera that can tell people what to do. And a big impression on me was made back in 1967. I think it was 10 years old, and National Geographic was doing their first ever TV special about Alaska, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the purchase of the territory of Alaska. And for 2 months that summer, the entire National Geographic crew was based in my house. And they were shooting stuff in the house, and they had gear there, and everybody was coming through, and they were planning all their stuff. And so as a 10-year-old, I thought that was awesome. And I got to play with stuff. I got to talk to the guys and see their gear, and I really liked gadgets, and I'm still a gadget guy. So this just seemed like a natural evolution.
So have you always been in Alaska?
I have. I've been up here since 1959.
So what kind of training did you do for it?
Yes, yeah, I took a semester of television production, which was basically focused on how to, do three-point lighting and to set up a shot for big pedestal-based video cameras in a studio setting to light somebody's face and maybe have two people there and cut between shots. It was all studio-based, but they also had an Eclair NPR 16mm camera, which they would use whenever they had to tell a story that was outside of the studio there in Fairbanks. And so I was able to get my hands on that, and we were able to shoot a story for the class. Everybody got to do a project for the class, and so I made sure that I used that film camera to do a project, and then I got to work at the station afterwards. So I went from being in the class to working at that station until later in 1977, I came back to Anchorage and got a job at Chemo TV in their photography department. And at Chemo TV, they were the only station in town that had a 16mm processor and a bunch of 16mm cameras. We had 4 or 5 16mm cameras, and then an entire refrigerator full of film. And they told us that we could go out and shoot as much film as we want. They wanted us to learn how to use it and how to get better. So my manager would say, shoot as much as you want. And so my jobs there were to shoot commercials and to shoot a public affairs show called Journal 13, which was a half-hour of public affairs stories, 3 or 4 stories told over a half-hour episode, I'm trying to remember if it was once a week or twice a week, but it was a lot of shooting. So I really cut my teeth on just running miles and miles and miles of film through a camera. And at that time too, there was no computer editing, so we would process the film, we'd go out and shoot the film, we'd come back, we'd process it, and I don't know if any of you guys know Kevin Kirka, but that's where I met Kevin Kirka, because he was running the processor every day at 4 o'clock. So we'd process the film, then we'd get it back, and then put it on the bench, put it on the rewinds, and then cut it. Look at it, hot splice it together, make our stories, and that's how we did it.
So how did you go from working at the news studio to working at Sprocketheads?
Let's see, good question. 'Cause I'm trying to remember the years. I spent 3 years at Chemo TV, again, just blowing through miles of film, trying to learn my craft. And so in 1980, I believe it was, I started at Connections. And we were, I think, 5 people there, an independent film production company, video and film production company. And back then, we were the first company to ever have a portable 1-inch recorder, which back in the day was huge. I mean, technology was moving fast, but back then to have 1-inch capable, to be capable of shooting 1-inch video, color video out in the field from a backpack machine was unheard of. It was brand new. We got the first machine up here and took it way up on the North Slope. We took it to Canada. We took it everywhere. And you know, cut a lot of ground there. We bought one of the first ever Aton cameras. The Aton was just coming together as a camera maker, and we went to New York and said, you know, we want the newest, coolest, hippest film camera you're making, you know, with all the technology we can get on it, like video assist, that sort of thing, which was brand new back then. And so we had one of those, and that's always been a theme in my work, is to always try to see what the latest technology is and do things that other people haven't done yet, you know, bringing cool tools up for the jobs.
So when did Sprocketheads start?
Sprocketheads, when it first went into business in 1995. And the story there is that Carolyn Robinson and Bob Curtis Johnson and myself worked together on a couple of projects and realized prior to us starting the business, we realized, hey, we really like working together because we've got a kick-ass producer, it's Carolyn Robinson, and we've got a really good shooter, that was me, and a really good editor, which was Bob Curtis Johnson. And we thought, you know, what a combination. We put this powerhouse together. We've got sort of some superheroes, and who knows where it'll go. It was really exciting to put that together, and we started in the basement of Carolyn's mother's house back in 1995. And very quickly, we bought the first ever in Alaska broadcast quality Avid editing system, so that we could go straight from our 3/4 inch or our film transfers on Betacam into our computer, and then spit it out back on a tape, and it could be broadcast. You know, that was pretty new back then.
Where'd the name come from?
The name, that's sort of a debate between Carolyn and I and everyone else that was there. But I'm pretty sure she's right. We had a couple of brainstorming sessions where we tried to figure out what are we going to call ourselves. You know, we could have used all our last names in a row, and we came up with some other cutesy things that we thought would be nice. I was especially fond of the name On Your Lips, but it sounded like you know, being flat-ass drunk on the floor. So we ended up seeing Sprocketheads, and it just rang true for us, for something about it that we thought was unique. We'd never seen it anywhere before. And if you dissect it, you know, you can be a motorhead, you can be a deadhead, you can be a big fan of something. And we were a big fan of film and shooting film. And film has sprocket holes, and there's sprockets inside a film camera that pull the film through it as in a projector. So we thought, hey, Sprocketheads, why not?
As a cinematographer, are you part of any of the production unions?
I am a member in good standing of Local 600, which is the International Cinematographers Guild. And in order to work on a Hollywood movie that is working under union contract, you have to be a member if you want to be in the camera department, which I do, and I have been for the last 6-7 years, I believe. One of the smartest things I ever did. Montana Artist Agency, my agent Matt Birch, he runs the place, and he found out that Transformers, the first version of Transformers, wanted to shoot in Alaska because they needed to do some glacier shooting. They wanted to have that ship be discovered underneath some glacier ice in front of the Columbia Glacier, something spectacular. So they knew they wanted to come up here and shoot. And Matt was pretty certain he could get me on that job if I was a member of the union. So we scrambled and we figured out what's it going to take to get me in the union, figured it out, paid the dues, showed him all the hours that I worked, got in the union, and I was actually able to work on that movie. And ever since then, I've been in and keeping up with it, and worked on, I believe, every movie since, except for Into the Wild. You know, of the Hollywood movies and the union movies that have been up here. It's great. I love being in the union. It's wonderful because the health benefits are fantastic, the retirement benefits are fantastic, the support you get from the union in terms of advanced training and seminars and exposure to things that are happening in the industry. You get newsletters. They have regular screenings of all the latest releases. They're right on the cutting edge of keeping you informed as to what's going on in the industry, and they're there. They fight for you. They're fighting for your wages and your benefits, and they make sure that you're not getting screwed around when you're working. And they also, if you're working on a union movie, you know a lot. You just don't have to worry about, you know, a lot of things because they take care of you.
Outside of the films that have shot up here, have you guys worked out of state at all?
No, we've worked internationally as well as nationally. Our jobs take us wherever they need to take us. I've worked in New York with some of the crew members that do Law and Order, and that was fun because we were right there on the streets of New York shooting some stuff with Scotty Gomez and going into buildings and doing a lot of stuff. I've done shooting in LA and in a lot of California, Washington, Oregon, pretty much all over.
When you guys first started out, what kind of productions did you mainly do?
When Sprocketheads first started, we were already crazy busy. So, I mean, from the day we opened for business, we had too much work, and we love it that way. We like to be busy. We like to have long-form documentaries that we're working on, a couple of those at a time sometimes. We have short-form films for, you know, like corporate films for businesses, maybe some training films, and we are always working on a slew of regional, high-level, image-based TV commercials. Plus, every once in a while, I'll get a call to go out and do some coverage for networks like History Channel, Learning Channel, Nat Geo, that kind of thing, and I've been doing that since before Sprocketheads.
Are you seeing a trend in what you're doing lately since the larger productions have ended up here?
I definitely see the business is changing up here, and it's not by accident. In fact, Carolyn, my business partner and my wife, she, I think, single-handedly is responsible for the film incentives that we have here. More than anybody else, I saw her work on that program, pushed on it every day. You know, at our offices for no pay. We were working to keep that thing going, connecting people with lawmakers and specialists and experts in the field, and making sure everybody knew what the benefits would be. And together we worked on that thing every day for a year to get the film incentives passed. And by passing, that has brought up the kind of work that we were looking for. Because before there were incentives, I could look at a future of, you know, I can keep doing what I'm doing. I could shoot documentaries, I can go do more corporate films, I can keep doing commercials, but I really wanted to shoot movies. I wanted to shoot films. I wanted to get into the movie business and shoot big features. And the only way I could do that, truthfully, was to go where they make movies and be around where they make movies. And that would mean I'd have to move my family, move my wife and my kid and my whole operation, my business. I'd have to move it to LA. And I didn't want to move. I don't want to live in LA. I don't want to live down there. I love the lifestyle up here in Alaska. And so that's why we work so hard to get the film incentives up here so we could bring the kind of business we'd like to be doing up here. And by doing so, hopefully that'll benefit a lot of people.
With the changes in technology today, what kind of changes have you noticed in distribution and production?
I mean, there are so many ways that media can be delivered to the consumer now. I mean, you can get it on your wrist, you can get it in your phone, you can get it on a tablet, you can get it in a computer, you can turn on the TV, you can see it in the bathroom when you're taking a piss. I mean, they got TVs everywhere, and there's computer screens, there's on airplanes, you know, everywhere you are in life now, content is being delivered through technology. I started with an 8mm film camera where I would shoot the roll of film, maybe shoot another roll of film, and then box it up in the little yellow box and take it to the drugstore and send it out. And a week later it would come back. I'm sure you've seen the movie Super 8. That's how it was. You know, you were a kid and you shot something and you put it in that box and you send it away. It comes back a week later and you look at it and it's like magic. It's like magic. It's really fun. So I've gone from that to enormously bulky, heavy video cameras that are just the camera on your shoulder and a big fat cable that comes down to a recorder that you sling over your back or somebody else carries. From that to self-contained, you got a camera and a recorder and the same thing on your shoulder. Wow, that was great. Why didn't they think of this before? So that would be the Betacam. And then and going on from there, video cameras just kept getting smaller and smaller, as we all know. And now you don't even need tape. Everything's on cards, which is wonderful. But at the same time, I've been shooting film all my life, and I've seen, you know, you could pick up a film camera that was made in 1960, and as long as it's been maintained, you can put film in there that's of the latest stock, and it's like you're shooting, you know, Kodak improves your camera. Every time they come out with a new film stock, they have improved your film camera, and it hasn't cost you a penny. You didn't have to buy a new electronic HD camera because Kodak did all the work. You just buy their new film stock, and now you've got less grainy, and it works better in low light and all that. So I've seen these two things evolve side by side because I like to play. To me, it's play, and I'm having fun. So yeah, technology is what it is, but you got to be a storyteller. And you know, the smartest camera in the world isn't going to tell you when to turn itself on and turn itself off, or how to point it. You have to have a good sense of framing, and you got to know when you got the shot, especially if you're the DP in charge. You're the one that's been looking at the footage more than anybody else. When you got 75 people standing behind you wondering, do we have the shot? You have to know that you have it, especially if you're shooting film. And at least back in the day when there was no video tap. You just have to know that you saw it happen in the camera, even if nobody else did.
What kind of advice would you give to someone starting out in the industry now? Typically,
when you rise up through this industry, you are you're closer to where a lot of the action is, and you get to know people, and you get to on a crew, and you start at a smaller position, and you work your way up through the levels of the department until you're where you want to be. And that hasn't really been the opportunity up here, as many people will tell you, is you've had to learn how to do everything yourself up here. And so I've never had a mentor. I've had to self-teach and then just try to guess and figure out, and then learn from some of the people that have come up here to do things that I got to work with. But my advice to any young people now that want to do this or interested in doing this is find other people who are of the same mindset. It's the same thing as if you want to start a rock band, you're a musician, you want to play music, find some other people that have the same thing in mind, that want to play. You can't do it by yourself. You got to collaborate. So find some people that want the same things that you want, and then divide up who's going to do what, and then do stuff. Just keep doing stuff. And don't turn anything down. Or, I mean, you got to be sensible, of course, but I got to this point by saying yes to damn near everything someone asked me if I was interested in doing, because I knew I would learn from every time I picked up a camera, or every time I looked at my footage and then had to make something out of it. You learn every time, and that's still true. You'll never stop learning.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I just want to say thank you to you and to DK, and I certainly applaud what you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic. I spent probably 10 or 15 years in this business recently, up until a couple of years ago, and I can't say if it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but there was a long stretch of time where I was always scratching my head wondering, where are the young guys? Who's going to keep this going, and who's next? Because I'd already been doing it for a long time, and there's Bill Holden and me, and and Gary Lamar and a couple other folks that were just cranking the stuff out and doing a really good job. And I think at the top of our games, but I wasn't seeing where the new guys were coming from. And now I think I do. And I'm certainly in working on these movies. I'm meeting a lot more of the younger guys and gals that are out there doing it, and I'm super impressed. And I just wanted to thank you and you guys and DK and everybody else for doing what you're doing, getting together on a regular basis and knowing how important this stuff is because you love it. I can tell you guys are doing it because you love it. So thanks and hats off to you guys. Keep doing it.
That's all the time we have today on Alaska Filmmakers. If you'd like to learn more about Steve and his work at Sprocketheads, you can visit our website at alaskafilmmakers.com. We'd like to thank Steve for joining us on the program and to AK Grip and Lighting for their hospitality. And of course, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors and supporters for making this season of AKF possible. Join us next week as we travel to the University of Alaska Fairbanks to speak with Maya Salganik about the newly formed bachelor degree program in film. Until then, remember, everyone has a story to tell.